the Scouting Corner. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Scout Law and Sign Language. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Scout Oath in Sign Language. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country and to obey the Scout Law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. 2. Hey Scouts! Welcome back. I am so glad that we are together again. Today we are working on Aware and Care. Aware and Care is an adventure that has 4 requirements, and we will be going through all 4 of them today. It is an amazing adventure to learn something new about somebody else and also about yourself. So, again, with this Aware and Care, this activity sheet will be posted with the video, so you'll be able to print it off, along with other websites and forms that will actually help you get through and gain a better understanding about people with disabilities. I will be going over how to talk with or speak about someone with disabilities and the kind of terms that you would probably want to use to be respectful to the other person, because the Scout is courteous and kind, and we always want to think about other people's feelings when we speak. So in the first requirement is to develop an awareness of the challenges of the blind and or visually impaired through participation of an activity that simulates blindness or visual impairment. Alternatively, participate in activity that simulates the challenges of someone who is deaf or hard of hearing. That is very important. In our normal activities, I would have all the supplies, right? You wouldn't have to worry about anything. But since we're doing it from home, there are just simple things that you need. The first one would be a bandana. These are great because no matter how you fold them, you can fold them longwise or in a nice triangular pattern. Whichever one will feel comfortable for you. Personally, I like to do the triangle only because when it comes to tying it, it's easier to tie because you have these little leaves on the end right here, and it makes a more comfortable fit. Just make sure you put it over your eyes to where you can't see anything, because we don't want, and that will simulate someone who is blind and who can't see. And if you do it thinner, in a thinner portion, that will cover probably more of your face but less of your eyes, then that can simulate someone who is visually impaired. You can also, if you have sunglasses, you can take some petroleum jelly or Vaseline. Petroleum jelly is the technical term of what it actually is. Vaseline is the name that you is a brand name. And you can take some here, and I suggest you do it on the outside so you don't worry about getting it on your eyelashes or near your eyes. And you would just smear it on there. And the crazy thing is you can do it over one eye, because some people with their visual impairments, it's actually just one eye that is visually impaired, or you can do both. Or you can even do a combination of where you do one eye and then do both. It's a very simple activity, but effective. Um, and so, what is being blind? You can't see. Some people are born blind. Some people will have an accident where they will lose their eyesight. And it's important to not assume that they were born blind or that they were in an accident. If they bring it up in conversation, talk about it. But it's never okay to say, "Oh, were you born that way?" Because all they have to say is, "Yes, I was born fabulous," like we all are. And so once you do that, either one, there's no wrong answer. Um, you can There are great activities to do. You can take a piece of paper and you can write your name. You can practice writing a sentence that is told to you. You can, if you have one eye obstructed, try throwing a ball into a cup and see how well you do with that. Very simple activities um, that are just, they're fun, they're family friendly, but I really want you to think about how this someone who is blind or visually impaired gets through their day. Another activity is to work with your see about deafness or hard of hearing. A lot of people, like my dad, has hearing loss in one ear, and my mom. Um, for various different reasons. My dad was in the military, and not so great technology with hearing protection caused him to lose hearing in one ear. Not on purpose, no one meant for it to happen. It's just something that happened. My mom, she got sick, um, and she just lost her hearing. Again, nobody's fault. And then you have people who listen to the music too loud. And I believe it's 90 hertz is 50 to 90 hertz is too loud for music. So when you hear those cars and you hear the vibration of the cars, that's hearing damage. If you go to a concert, whether it is an outdoor concert or an indoor, like in an arena, you always want to get construction grade, which you can get at Walmart, hearing plugs to protect your ears. And if you do not have, yeah, something as simple as cotton balls. That's the correct side, yeah, cotton balls. Um, to put in your ears to at least muffle the sound that is coming in, because we want to protect our eardrums. Now, when you're doing this activity for the hearing impaired, you can also take cotton balls, take a pretty generous piece because we don't want it getting stuck in your ear. You just roll it up and you just put it in your ear. Now, this really won't give you the feeling of being deaf, more hearing impaired, but then you'll also notice that you can hear your own voice. So It's also a cool way to actually know how you sound when you're talking to people. And if you have noise canceling headphones, those are great to use because it's meant to block out the outside noise. So maybe have dinner with those on or with these in, cotton balls, and you can experience what it's like that you might not have full hearing. And then then discuss it. Discuss it with your family because maybe a family member has hearing issues, and it's a way that you can get to know more about your family and family members. Another one that I love, love, love to do. This one actually goes into requirement 2. So at the begin, so once you do this, you have the activity, the supplies you need, and tasks that you can do. And then I have simple questions to be answered. Um, did any of your senses get heightened when you were blindfolded? They say, and sometimes it does happen, not for everyone, that your other senses change. They become more acute to where you can. It's almost like a protection that your body naturally has. Describe how your hearing changed. Describe how your sense of touch changed. Describe how your sense of smell changed. And just a simple description, didn't change at all, nothing happened. I felt more texture, things felt softer, rougher, things like that. And then how did your sense of smell change? Did you notice smells in your house that you didn't notice before? Did you notice something about your mom's perfume that you hadn't noticed before? Like, is it sweeter? Does it have a little more of a floral scent? Maybe your dog needs a bath. And with your eyes, you didn't notice because that's not where your focus was. And then, did you hear anything different? Was there a clock that you never really heard before? Was there a song that someone was playing in another room that they were listening to? And when you weren't blindfolded, did you hear it? Did you hear something else outside? It's amazing how things can happen. Just pay attention and just jot down your answers. And then don't forget to record it or take a picture and turn it in. So that's requirement 1. Requirement 2. Ooh, ooh. Take part in an activity that simulates dexterity disabilities. Dexterities are your joints, your fingers, your elbows, your arms, your knees, your legs, hips, joints. So one thing I like to do is I can take tape and put tape, if you have tape at home. And this can be regular tape, this can be medical tape, like from your first aid kit. And you can simply tape fingers together. Of course, you would do it a lot more. And you can tape them together any way that you want. Maybe take away your thumb. Maybe take away your pinky, your index finger or pointer finger. And go through your day doing normal activities. So, are you doing homework? Are you typing? Are you texting? I hope you're not texting. Cleaning dishes, picking up your room, helping your mom put away groceries, helping your dad clean the house and put things away. And really see how hard it is or how different it is to do these things. Tie your shoes. And you can also use like really oversized gloves. Like take your dad's gloves or your mom's gloves, put them on. They're bigger than yours, than your hands. And maybe two or three pair of gloves or mittens. You know, the mittens, the ones that you have, your fingers are all put together and then only your thumbs are out. And try tying your shoes, putting things away, and see how different that is. And don't forget to write it down and take a picture and turn it in. So requirement three, with your den or family, since we are doing scouting from home, participate in an activity that focuses on acceptance of differences in general. So with this one, I am going to, if I can find it, post this with the video. It's the National Youth Leadership Network. It's from one of their websites. And this was amazing when I found it. I just read the whole thing. I thought it was like, oh my gosh, yes. And this one is all about respectful disability language. So from Mark Twain, this might come up later, so pay attention. Mark Twain, the difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug. What do you think that means? It's one of those things that you know it when you hear it or say it or feel it. But let me know what you think what that means. And I'll even put it in with the Facebook post so you can answer that question. So, what does it mean? What does a disability respectful language mean? Well, there was a huge disability movement, and which with the movement came along the Americans for Disabilities Act, which will also be put into the post. And at one point, people with disabilities were not treated like the rest of us, or treated like, as they used to say, quote unquote, normal people. What's normal? I have no idea. But they weren't treated the same. So a lot of wonderful people had disability camps, handicap camps, um, mobilely impaired camps. They had different names. They had different purposes. They included different types of people. Some were for people with Down syndrome only. Some were for mobility impairment, and some actually encompassed everybody. So these camps were really important because people were able to go away for the summer, like all of their friends, and be around people who were just like them. So it was very, very important. But when they got back to their quote unquote regular lives, they they were still encountering difficulties with people. And so the disability rights movement, advocated for positive changes in society. So everybody's included and everybody is treated equally and everybody has equal rights. And they have the equal, so they can get housing, so they can get jobs, so they can live independently, so they can choose what community they want to live in without having other people make those decisions for them. Because that's not fun, right? No, it's not. So um, they worked really hard, and the Americans for Disabilities Act was passed, I believe, in 1990. Um, and that is a very important act of legislation, giving them the ability to live the way that they want to. And disrespectful language can make people feel excluded, make them not feel that they want to participate, make them not want to be a part of the group. And this is just a very typically unintended way that people are made to feel, because language is very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Um, think about different ways that language affects you. So if it affects you, if certain languages affects you in a certain way, how do you think that's going to make someone else feel? Um, so it's very important to really, again, if someone, like I said, if someone's blind, you don't ask them how they became blind, and you really want to try to use language that makes them, that is more inviting than not. So I'm going to be reading just a little bit of the guidelines here. And of course, it'll also be posted if you, so you can read up more. And this will be a great talk to your parents about this. So to refer to a person's disability only when it is related to what you are talking about. For example, don't ask, "What's wrong with you?" Don't refer to people in general or generic terms such as the girl in the wheelchair. So, if there are 3 Johns in a classroom, don't go, "Oh, John A, John C, and John in the wheelchair." That's just wrong, right? It should be John A, John C, and John S. Who cares if he's in a wheelchair? He just has cool rides. He just has a cool ride. That's all I'm saying. Okay? When talking about a place with accommodations for people with disabilities, use the term accessible rather than disabled or handicapped. Is it accessible? Now, if you have to be specific, it's okay to say, is it wheelchair accessible? Because a place can be wheelchair accessible, but not so accessible to someone who is on a walker or on crutches. There are different types of accessibility, and if you're looking for a specific type of accessibility, ask. Because if your grandmother's in a wheelchair and your sister broke her leg and she's on crutches, how accessible is it for both of them? Because going up a ramp in crutches is not the easiest thing in the world. Believe me, I know. So just check to make sure. Um, but that is very important that when you're specifically talking about something, use specifics. But you want to say accessible parking spaces instead of disabled or handicapped parking spaces. Um, or an accessible bathroom stall rather than a handicapped bathroom stall. You have to remember, language has changed over the years, like it always does. It has evolved, which means grown up in a way. So we're all trying to be better human beings and be more kind to each other. So use the term disability to take the following terms out of your vocabulary when talking about a person or people with disabilities. So don't use the terms handicapped, differently abled, crippled, cripple, victim, retard, stricken, poor, unfortunate, or special needs. Special needs is one that is still used a lot, but more in a school or medical setting to describe someone. A lot of these terms were used in medical senses to way back in like as early as the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even part of the 90s, which shows you how long it's taken. Um, but some people who are caregivers or helpers of someone who is disabled might not want to just put out there, hey, coming to your restaurant, I have someone who's disabled, because inadvertently a lot of people start asking questions and maybe they don't want to answer them. So they'll say, I have someone with special needs. And then it takes the conversation in a different way. So it's really important to talk to the person with whom you are working with or going with to or talking with to determine how they want to be referred to if the disability comes into play. Give them their power. Let them have their power because it's their life. It's not yours. Um, just because someone has disability doesn't mean that he or she is cowardice. Okay. Um, it doesn't mean that they're less than. And it also doesn't mean that they're courageous, brave, special, or superhuman. People with disabilities are the same as everyone else. It is not unusual for someone with disabilities to have talents, skills, or abilities. So this goes right into one of my favorite parts is visible and invisible disabilities. There are two types. Visible is what you can see. So typically if someone's blind, you can tell. If someone is has Down syndrome, if someone's in a wheelchair, if someone has to be on crutches, long term, if they have cerebral palsy, um, those differences are very visible, and people react to, and we all react to them a certain way. Then you have invisible disabilities, which actually is hearing is one of them, unless it is someone who has a hearing aid on or a cochlear implant, and that makes their disability visible. It's a very invisible um, thing. Um, so we need to watch it. We need to watch how we react to people. You have people in your school, maybe you're one of them, I know I am, who have a learning disability. Just because someone has a learning disability doesn't mean that they are less smart, that they are less intelligent, that they're stupid. I hate that word. Never use that word. Take it out of your vocabulary. It is that our brains work differently than everybody else's. And it is very important to know the difference. Someone might have autism. Someone might have a speech impediment. Someone might not be able to read correctly. These things are dyslexia, which is problems with reading, gathering information, processing information, dyscalculia, which is a difficulty with numbers and being able to read them or put them down correctly. Dyslexia, dyscalculia tend to go hand in hand. Dysgraphia is a disability where it's hard to write sometimes. Then you also have autism, and there's what they call a spectrum. Asperger's is what they call high functioning, and then they just have different levels, I guess you could say. I want you to look it up. I'm not going to just tell you everything. I want you to look up this spectrum, the autism spectrum, because they're changing it. They're changing, they're thinking about changing the autism spectrum to include certain learning disabilities. What disabilities are those? So, if someone in your class, or if you, like me, have a learning disability, don't ever put yourself down or anyone else, because it just means our brains work differently. We process information differently. And what learning disability do you think Miss Netta has? I have two. So it has, I love this worksheet. Okay, yeah, fine paper. Um, Words to describe different disabilities. The ones that are out of date language and the ones that are respectful language. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll go through some. So we already went over the blind or visually impaired. You don't want to use dumb or invalid. Those terms were used way back when, and those are just not cool. Not even back then. Just totally disrespectful. But you can say blind, visually impaired, person who is blind or visually impaired. And if you don't know, just kind of use both. Be respectful. Someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, invalid. You can tell that was a very bad term that was used, right? Deaf and dumb, deaf and mute. There are reasons why some people who are deaf or hard of hearing don't talk verbally like we do, or like you do, like I do. And that is their choice. And it is up to us to respect that choice. They do speak, they use sign language. And for if they're working with people who don't know sign language, they will write something down or type it or text it to communicate. They are very smart. And there are a lot of people who are blind and deaf and have learning disabilities and other physical disabilities and other invisible disabilities who are highly intelligent. I'm thinking of one right now. He was an astrophysicist. He is no longer with us. I am so sad about that. He was amazing. Who was it? Answer me. Okay, so instead you would want to say deaf or hard of hearing, especially if you don't know which one, or a person who is deaf or hard of hearing. If you know definitively that someone is hard of hearing, you say they are hard. He is hard of hearing. He probably didn't hear you because he's hard of hearing. If you know for sure someone is deaf, you will say they didn't hear you because they're deaf. Speech and communication disabilities. I had a speech problem when I was younger. And you don't go, oh, well, they're dumb. There's someone who talks bad. First of all, improper English. We don't want to do that. But you don't want to point out that they have difficulty speaking. You'll say someone with a speech problem, speech communication disability. Just because someone has a learning disability doesn't mean that they won't grow. I don't like to say the word grow out of it, but learn to live with it. Um, a learning disabilities, retarded, slow, brain damage, special ed. Never cool. Special ed is still used as a classification in schools. And it's not used in a derogatory way. It's a part of the language to place people for help. It's a part of the language that isn't always the kindest, but it helps. But it's there to actually help people instead of put people down. It's tricky. So you'll say someone with a learning disability, someone with cognitive disabilities, a person with special learning and cognitive, with a person with a learning or cognitive disability. Cognitive just means brain, thinking here. That's all. Um, so there are a lot of different things that are on here that we think is, we know some of them are wrong. We know some of them we're joking with, but we might not know the proper language. So that's why I put this on there. It's a great tool, and it's something that we need to, we all need to work on every day. And again, this will be added to the Facebook post, but you can also go onto their website, which is nyland.org, right here, right there, for more information. A great tool, great resource, and they also have other wonderful um, information on there over a variety of things. So once you go over that with your family, how can you accept and show acceptance to different people, to differences in other people? So differences and how you can show acceptance. Now I know y'all are pretty good about that, but definitely talk with your family about it, because you might find another way that works better for you and your family to show respect and to be courteous. Requirement 4. We're going into 4. Now, this one is to do 2 sub requirements. Now, I'll go ahead and read them off, and then I'll tell you the 2 that I chose, because it's kind of easy to do while you're at home. So do a good turn. The first one, 4A. Do a good turn daily for residents at a skilled nursing facility or retirement community. A good turn daily. That is a term that is used in Boy Scouts of America to do something good for somebody and not expect anything back. So, what are good turns that you can do? Trash pickup, bringing in flowers, spending time with them, doing a song, doing a skit, bringing in cookies for, of course, think of dietary restrictions, for the age group that you're looking at. Invite 4B and invite an individual with a disability to visit your den home to discuss what activities he or she currently feels finds challenging and found challenging in the past. Just because something is hard today doesn't mean it's going to be hard tomorrow or a week from now. That's the wonderful thing about the human spirit. The more and who we are is the more you try something, the easier it will get. Just because you don't know something today doesn't mean you won't know it forever. And you won't learn it. Keep trying. You can also Skype someone, video chat, FaceTime, Zoom call someone especially if you have someone in your family or someone you know, have that conversation with them. 4C, attend disabilities event such as Special Olympics competitions, an adaptive sports event, a performance with sign language interpretation, or an activity with service dogs. Tell your den about your experience and what you thought about it. Of course, being indoors, we can't exactly go to events, right? No. But you can always look up on YouTube and read articles about the Special Olympics, Paralympics. You have the Special Olympics that are for certain ages. We have a lot of veterans who are involved in Special Olympics because they might have a disability from the military. A lot of long distance runners that have physical disabilities. Um, so those are a lot of great things you can do. You can look up different activities, speeches especially, with interpreters and see how that is done. 4D, talk to someone who works with people who has disabilities. Ask what that person does and how he or she helps the person with disabilities. There are a lot of community groups and organizations who work with people with disabilities. You can do a Google search with your parents to find these groups and advocacies. You can also message your teacher and ask her if she can give your information to someone who works with the children in your school who have physical disabilities. They are amazing unsung heroes, and they can tell you about what happens and what they do, how they do it, and why. It is very important to get to know everybody because you never know what you're going to learn from someone. 4E, use American Sign Language in this to sign the Scout Oath. I will be doing a separate connected video for the sign language of the Scout Oath and Scout Law. And if you notice in the beginning, I did the Scout Oath and Law and sign language. I will just be slowing it down and teaching it to you. And then for F, with the help of an adult, with the adult to help you, contact a service dog organization, learn the entire process of pup training for assignment to a client. It's a long process, and it's not an easy process. Not all dogs are service dogs. Not all animals are service animals. They have to go through a certification process with people who are trained to make those assessments. And there are a lot of great, amazing people doing this work. And they work tirelessly to make sure that service animals are available. 4G, participate in a service project that focuses on a specific disability. That can be something as simple as making sure ramps are safe for people who have to use wheelchairs or crutches. That's a mobility disability. Making sure that the signs for parking are cleaned off to make it easier to read, but make sure you have permission from the city, the state, the property owner. Figure out who you have to have permission from. Making sure brush is removed from trails so people with mobility disabilities can actually move around on them easily. So there are many disabilities that you can really make a difference with. Donating large letter print books to your library, to your local city library, or to your local school library, or to another school library. So kids who have visual disabilities can actually read a book. Maybe get books with tapes so people with visual disabilities can actually hear a book on their own without having someone read to them. Maybe have get books in Braille for people who are visually impaired to be able to read. And FH and 4H, 4H, 4H. Participate in activity with an organization whose members are disabled. There are veteran organizations. There's the Special Olympics. There's the Paralympics. There are many different groups that you can volunteer with and help their members out during things. I know that the Paralympics and Special Olympics always need volunteers. And no matter what age you are, they will find a place for you and let you know. So again, I'm going to be doing 4E. It will be done on a separate video because I'm going to take it, slow it down, and break it down to where you can actually practice this at home for the Scout Law and Scout Oath. So if you have another cubby in your house who is a wolf, they can also watch this video because they have to learn the Scout Law. You have to learn the Scout Oath, but you can learn both together. And then you can practice with each other to help each other out. And if you have difficulty learning the Scout Oath and Law, Um, sign language is a great way to learn. It uses many of your senses, and whether it is in English or in sign language or Spanish or German or French, it's the Waterloo dialect for the sign language, and it's the same 12 words. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Same words, no matter which language we're talking about, and it'll help you learn. The other one that is on this worksheet is requirement 4F, which is with an adult with your adult, y'all. Come on. Um, contact a service organization and learn the entire process of training animals. And of course, like always, I do have the questions that you can ask. And if y'all print these out, if you notice at the bottom, it says Akela signature. Again, your Akela is your participating adult. They sign, they date. They can just take a picture and post it, and then take pictures of them, post it, and then we can take care of your advancement. So, thank you so much for being with me today, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me today. In the Cub Master Minute, today I would like to talk about differences. We are all different. If we were all the same, would we be any fun? We all thought the same, talked the same, ate the same exact foods. Would we really have fun? Would we really learn anything from each other? And that's where differences are beautiful, because I learn so much from everybody in my life every day. I have nobody who is the exact same in my life. All my friends, even my family members, especially my family members, we're all different. And if you take time to sit back and learn and enjoy and absorb what other people are teaching you, have to teach you, even when they're not trying to, it's an amazing feeling. And I love it when a lesson comes back in a different way and I'm able to pass that lesson on to someone else. My parents were born in the 40s, raised in the 50s, 60s, were adults in the um, 70s and 80s, and when they were having children. And now we're in the 2000s, 2020s, and their grandparents and retirees. And the lessons I have learned from them are invaluable. And I find that I'm passing them on to my children. And even better, they're passing them on to my children. And differences are much more than age and race and gender and belief systems. And it's important that we respect everyone the way they are. At one point in time, people with disabilities were looked at as broken and less worthy and not normal, and anyone who was outside of the norm was considered unworthy and less than. But what is the norm? Who decides what the norm is? And are you outside of it because you're outside of someone else's norm? It's very possible, but it's okay. I had one teacher in college actually ask us, it was on a form for her to get to know us, psychology class, of course, right? And one of the questions was, would you rather be normal or would you rather want to be weird? I've always said I would rather be weird because normal's boring. Normal is everybody else. Weird is being yourself, knowing who you are, and not apologizing for it. Be a good person, be a kind person, be a trustworthy person. Live by the Scout Law and the Scout Oath, and everything will be fine. We're all uniquely made, and we are all amazing. Thank you for coming and joining me today, and I will see you next time. Hey there, it's me again. Okay, like I told you before, I will be this video is for requirement 4E. This is about American Sign Language with the Scout Law and Scout Oath. Fourth graders, fifth graders, my Webelos Arrow of Lights, y'all have to learn the Scout Oath in sign language. For my wolves, you have to learn the Scout Law in sign language. So I'm going to do both, just in case you haven't had the opportunity to learn them. Sign language is an extremely beautiful language. It is a language that has been around for a very long time. It is a language that people tried to oppress, but it lived on. It is a language that is spoken all over the world in different ways. I would like you to look that up and see how sign language is different from France to England, Germany, Africa, America, South America, different Spanish countries, Spain, Italy. But it is a form of communication. 90% of human communication is nonverbal to begin with. So a lot of times when your mom gives you that look, you know what it means. When your grandmother gives you that look, you know what that means. So a lot of things are nonverbal to begin with. And sign language is a build off on that. And it has become one of the most amazing languages that I've ever had the privilege to learn. Am I fluent? No. Would I love to be? One day. So let's talk about etiquette for sign language. When people are speaking sign language, you never want to stare at their hands or their mouths as they're signing because that's like eavesdropping and it's improper and it's not nice because you wouldn't want someone to eavesdrop on your conversations, would you? I know I wouldn't. So just be respectful. If you see it, look away. But don't stare because it's just inappropriate. And we want to remember to remain kind and courteous to other people. So typically with sign language, old school method, it's done with the right hand. Today's methodology is whichever hand is more comfortable, your dominant hand, that's the one you should use. I tend to go with the old school and say use your right hand. I'm left-handed, so this was very difficult for me to learn how to do. But once I learned it, now it feels weird to lead with my left hand. So I'll always lead with my right hand. And to make it easier, I am putting on a bracelet on my left hand. See this black bracelet. That way, you know, that is my left hand. And I am going to put on a different bracelet. It's going to be slightly different. I can get it off. Of course, this one doesn't want to work. Okay. On my right hand. So, I don't like that.